AITA for giving my friend a brutal reality check about her dating app standards? My best friend was crying about being single, but when she called every guy on her dating apps ugly, I told her the brutal truth. She was looking at her own reflection. Now she's not speaking to me, and the entire internet is about to decide, was I the villain? The notification came through at 11:37 p.m. on a Tuesday. It was the sound I'd come to dread over the past week, the specific overly enthusiastic swoop of a Hinge screenshot being delivered to my DMs. I put down my book, a thrilling escape into a world where people weren't obsessed with curated dating profiles, and picked up my phone with the sigh of someone approaching a part-time, unpaid, and deeply frustrating job. The screenshot showed a guy named Mark. He was smiling in front of a mountain, a nice genuine smile. He had kind eyes, a slightly receding hairline that he wasn't trying to hide, and in his profile he mentioned a love for terrible sci-fi movies and perfecting his grandma's pancake recipe. My friend Chloe's text was superimposed over his face in a brutal pink bubble. I rest my case. The audacity of this man to own a hiking backpack. I typed back, my thumbs heavy with fatigue. What's wrong with him? He looks nice. 3 dancing dots appeared instantly. Nice? Maya, he's a sentient potato. Potato that hikes. And perfecting his grandma's pancakes? That's code for, I have no personality and will expect you to do all the cooking. Swipe left. This had been our new normal. For 7 straight days, my best friend of 15 years, the girl I'd survived high school acne and college heartbreaks with, had morphed into a ruthless, swipe-happy tribunal judge, and I was her captive, exasperated audience. Chloe had always been the romantic, the planner. While I was content with my own company, a good book, and my cat, Mr. Whiskers, Chloe thrived on partnership. She'd speak wistfully of couples' costumes for Halloween, sharing a dessert, having a +1 for weddings that wasn't just me, her perpetually single best friend. Her desire for a relationship wasn't just a want. It was a core part of her identity, a hollow space she was desperate to fill. Her loneliness had finally boiled over last week. That's it, she declared, slamming her laptop shut during one of our weekly movie nights. I'm done waiting for fate. I'm going digital. And with that, she downloaded the holy trinity of modern romance: Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge. I'd been hopeful. This is great, Chloe. It's a numbers game. You'll be drowning in dates in no time. Oh, the sweet, naive fool I was. The problem wasn't a lack of options. The problem was Chloe's criteria. She wasn't just looking for a connection. She was auditioning for the male lead in a Netflix rom-com, and every man who dared to slide into her DMs was a failed contestant on a show she was both starring in and directing. Her complaints were a rotating menu of grievances. Ugly. Short. His bio says fluent in sarcasm, which is code for I'm an asshole. He's holding a fish. Swipe left. He's not holding a fish, he has no hobbies. Swipe left. This guy used a gym selfie. The vanity. This guy didn't use a gym selfie, no ambition. It was an impossible, contradictory standard. And the most frustrating part? The men she was dismissing weren't trolls living under bridges. They were, for the most part, perfectly pleasant, normal-looking guys. Accountants named Brian who enjoyed board games. Teachers named David who volunteered at animal shelters. They were, in a word, average. Just like us. Let me be clear about Chloe. She is my best friend and I love her. But I'm a realist. She is normal. Cute. She has a great laugh and kind heart buried under this new judgmental armor. She's 5 feet 4 inches, has mousy brown hair she highlights every 6 months, a perfectly fine body, and a smattering of freckles across her nose. She's the girl you wouldn't look at twice on the street, but you'd be lucky to have a conversation with. She was, in my entirely unprofessional opinion, squarely in the league of the Marks and Bryans and Davids of the world. But try telling her that. The crescendo of this symphony of dissatisfaction came on Friday night. She was at my apartment, curled on the opposite end of my sofa, a pint of Ben & Jerry's in her lap as she aggressively swiped through Tinder, providing a live commentary that was equal parts comedy and tragedy. Oof. Balding and proud, I see. Left. This one says he's 5 feet 9 inches. So 5 feet 7 inches. Left. Oh, look, another guy who loves to travel. Wow, you like fun. How original. Left. His face is lopsided. It's making me anxious. Left. I'd had enough. Chloe, what are you actually looking for? Describe him. In detail. She put her phone down, her eyes lighting up with the fantasy. Okay. He's tall. Obviously. Like 6 feet 2 inches at least. He's got that Jake Gyllenhaal vibe, you know? Soulful eyes, great hair, a jawline you could cut yourself on. He's successful, but not a workaholic. He has a passion, maybe he's a photographer or a musician, but not in a struggling artist way, in a cool, I have a trust fund but I'm deep way. He's funny, but not at anyone's expense. He's fit, but not obsessed with the gym. He's a fictional character. I interrupted, unable to stop myself. You've just described a Pinterest board, not a person. Her face fell. No, I haven't. Guys like that exist, Maya. They're just not on these apps. They're probably all on Raya or something. And are you on Raya? I asked gently. You need like 50,000 Instagram followers to get on Raya. She mumbled, deflating. Right. So, maybe let's focus on the humans who actually exist in our orbit. I gestured to her phone. Can I see? Just show me the guys you're calling ugly. Let's do a reality check. She hesitated, a flicker of insecurity in her eyes, before shoving her phone into my hands. Fine. But prepare to be horrified. I scrolled through her likes page, a sea of faces of men who had already expressed interest in her. My heart sank. It wasn't a gallery of horrors. It was a perfectly pleasant parade of normalcy. There was a guy with a slightly goofy smile and a dog. A guy wearing a slightly too formal shirt in his profile picture, clearly trying his best. A guy with kind eyes and a bio about loving his niece. They were teachers, IT guys, a freelance graphic designer, a bar manager. They were, to a T, moderately attractive. A few were genuinely cute. None of them were supermodels, but none of them were the bridge trolls her running commentary had led me to believe. This was it. The moment of truth. Chloe, I said, choosing my words with the care of a bomb disposal expert. These guys, they're all perfectly fine. They're nice looking. They're in your league. The silence that followed was absolute and icy. She snatched her phone back, her face a mask of cold fury. Excuse me. I'm just saying, look at them. They're normal attractive guys. You're a normal attractive girl. You're in the same league. Maybe you should give one of them a chance. You're the one who's been miserable about being single for a year. These guys want to take you out. Her denial was immediate and absolute. I am not in the same league as them, Maya. Are you blind? Look at Steve here. She pointed to the man with the dog. He has a weak chin. And this one, Alex, his eyes are too close together. I am much more attractive than this. The bomb disposal expert in me had just clipped the wrong wire. Are you, though? The words were out of my mouth before I could stop them, fueled by a week of pent-up frustration. Chloe, you're complaining that you don't match with any of the guys you find attractive. The hot, tall, chisel-jaw guys you swipe right on? They're not matching back. So by the very definition of how these apps work, you are not in their league. The league you are in is right here. I tapped her phone screen, now displaying a perfectly lovely man named Kevin who enjoyed microbreweries and The Office. This is your league. And there is nothing wrong with this league. It's a great league. It's where most of us live. The color drained from her face. She stood up, placing the half-eaten pint of ice cream on my coffee table with a sharp final thud. So that's what you think of me, she said, her voice dangerously quiet. You think I'm so desperate that I should just settle for the uggos you think I deserve. You think I'm as basic and mediocre as Kevin and his beet red ale. That's not what I said. I said you should be realistic. You can't expect a 10 when you're a... I stopped. I had almost said it. When you're a 6. The unspoken number hung in the air between us, more damaging than if I'd shouted it. When I'm a what, Maya? She whispered, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Go on. Say it. I didn't mean it like that. I just meant, the math isn't matting. You're rejecting everyone in your pool. And then complaining the pool is empty. You're a real asshole, you know that? she said, grabbing her purse and heading for the door. Chloe, wait. The door slammed shut, the sound echoing in the sudden silence of my apartment. Mr. Whiskers, startled from his nap, glared at me from the armchair as if to say, "Well, you really stepped in at that time." I looked down at my phone. The screen had gone dark, reflecting my own guilty, worried face back at me. The silence was deafening. The weekend passed in a fog of guilt and self-recrimination. My phone was conspicuously quiet. No complaints about men with bad bios. No rants about guys who led with "hey." No schwoops. I replayed the argument in my head 1,000 times. Had I been an asshole? Absolutely. My delivery was brutal, clumsy, and deeply hurtful. I had taken a sledgehammer to my best friend's fragile ego. But was I wrong? That was the question that gnawed at me. Was it so terrible to point out a harsh truth? Was I supposed to just sit there and nod along while she torpedoed her own chances at happiness based on a delusion? Enabling her wasn't kindness, it was cowardice. I thought about our friendship. I was always the pragmatic one, the anchor to her hot air balloon. She dreamed of fairy tales. I reminded her to check the weather forecast. She wanted a prince. I pointed out that the guy who remembered how she took her coffee was actually more valuable. Was our entire dynamic just me subtly telling her to lower her expectations? The thought made me sick. By Sunday evening, the silence was unbearable. I crafted a careful, heartfelt apology text. "Me, Chloe, I am so sorry. What I said was incredibly harsh and it came out all wrong. I never meant to hurt you or imply you aren't amazing and deserving of an amazing guy. I'm just frustrated for you. Seeing you so unhappy and rejecting guys who seem, from the outside, like they could make you happy. I miss you. Can we talk?" An hour later, the 3 dots appeared. My heart leapt. "Chloe, apology accepted. But what you said really messed with my head. I need some space." Space. The relationship killer. The word sent a chill down my spine. Desperate for an outside perspective, I did the one thing you're never supposed to do. I went online. I found a popular subreddit, a digital coliseum where people presented their moral dilemmas for the judgment of the masses. I typed out the whole story from the first screenshot to the slammed door, framing it with the question burning in my soul. If for telling my friend she's in the same league as men she calls ugly? I posted it and waited, my stomach in knots. The response was immediate and volcanic. My inbox exploded. The first wave was fiercely on my side. Comment 1, top comment 15.2k upvotes NTA. Your friend is the female version of the guys who get mad that Stasis won't date them while they themselves look like a thumb in a beanie. She's suffering from a severe case of main character syndrome and a completely warped sense of self. The truth hurts, but she needed to hear it. You're a good friend for being honest. She's shooting herself in the foot and then complaining she can't run a marathon. Commenting, the league isn't some arbitrary mean girl concept. It's a reflection of the dating market. If you're consistently failing to match with the people you're attracted to, the common denominator is you. It's basic supply and demand. She can either improve the product, get in killer shape, develop more interesting hobbies, take better photos, or adjust her target market. You just gave her the quarterly report. Comment 3 and T. As a guy on these apps, we know when women like your friend swipe left on us. We can feel the undeserved judgment through the screen. It's exhausting. Tell her to get over herself. I felt a surge of vindication. They got it. They saw the logic. I wasn't a monster. But then the other side of the coin revealed itself. And it was brutal. Comment 4, 8.7k upvotes YTA, but softly. Look, your friend was being shallow and obnoxious. But your job as her friend isn't to be her dating app auditor. It's to be her support system. She was venting. She was feeling insecure and lashing out. By telling her she's in their league, you didn't just state a fact, you confirmed her deepest fear. That she's mediocre and unspecial. You could have said, hey, maybe his personality is great. You chose to neg her self-worth. That's an asshole move. Comment 5 YT. Women are constantly told to lower their standards, to settle, to be grateful for male attention. Why shouldn't she hold out for someone she's genuinely excited about? So what if her standards are high? Maybe she'd rather be single than settle for a Kevin. You basically told your friend she's not as hot as she thinks she is. That's never not an asshole thing to do. Comment 6. Why the league system is toxic and you're perpetuating it. People connect for all sorts of reasons that have nothing to do with some imaginary point system. Attraction is subjective. By putting a number on your friend, you're being just as shallow as she is, if not more so. Ouch. Their points hit home, reopening the wound of my own doubt. Had I, in trying to shatter her delusion, simply reinforced the most toxic looks-obsessed part of dating culture? Was I part of the problem? The debate raged in the comments. It became a sprawling 2,000-comment thread about modern dating, standards, friendship, and the brutal economics of attraction. People shared their own stories of friends like Chloe, of brutal rejections, of settling and regretting it, of holding out and winning. My personal conflict had become a public referendum. Reading the comments was like looking into a funhouse mirror. My actions were reflected back at me in 100 distorted, yet strangely recognizable ways. I realized the core of the issue wasn't really about leagues. It was about loneliness and self-perception. Chloe's hypercritical swiping wasn't about the men on the screen. It was a proxy war for her own insecurities. Every left swipe on a short guy was a preemptive strike against the fear of being seen as too much or not enough. Every dismissal of a balding man was a deflection from her own fears about aging and desirability. She was building a wall of criticism to protect herself from the vulnerability of actually putting herself out there and possibly being rejected. And I, in my clumsy attempt to help, hadn't tried to understand the wall. I'd just taken a run at it with a battering ram. I thought about the men in the profiles. Kevin with his microbrews. Mark with his pancakes. Steve with his dog. They weren't just avatars in Chloe's game. They were real people with their own hopes, their own vulnerabilities, their own late-night swiping and their own silent phones. They deserved more than to be dismissed as ugly by someone who refused to see her own reflection in them. But Chloe also deserved more than a friend who reduced her to a number in a cold, hard dating market. I was stuck in the middle, guilty of both a crime of emotion and a crime of logic. Another week passed. The silence from Chloe was a physical ache. The Reddit post had faded, but the lesson hadn't. I knew I had to try again. A real apology, not a text. One that acknowledged her feelings, not just my own justification. I decided to go old school. I bought a card. Not a funny one, a sincere, slightly mushy one about friendship. And I wrote a long, rambling letter. I didn't mention leagues. I didn't mention ratings. I talked about how much I missed her. I apologized for being harsh and for failing to see that she was hurting. I told her that I thought she was beautiful inside and out, and that any guy would be lucky to have her. I told her I was on her team always, even when I was a terrible teammate. I slipped the card into her mailbox and waited. 2 days later, my phone swooped. My heart hammered against my ribs. It was a Hinge screenshot. The profile was of a man named Ben. He was smiling a little awkwardly in a bookstore. He was normal. Nice eyes, a slightly goofy grin, a bio that read, high school history teacher. I know more about the War of 1812 than is socially acceptable. We'll trade book recommendations for coffee. Underneath, Chloe had written, he mentioned his favorite book is the same as mine. I'm scared. What do I do? Tears welled in my eyes. This wasn't a complaint. It was a confession. It was vulnerability. It was her letting down the wall just a crack. I typed back, my fingers trembling. You say, I'll take a chai latte and tell me, was the War of 1812 really just a tie? Then you go and you see if he makes you laugh. And if his eyes are kind in person. And you give a real live human being a chance. And if it sucks, we get ice cream and I will never say, I told you so. I promise. The 3 dots danced. Okay. I swiped right. Wish me luck. A pause. And Maya, thank you. For the card. And everything. So here I am. Ben and Chloe have a date set for Thursday night. I have no idea if it will lead to a second date or a relationship or anything at all. And honestly, it doesn't matter. What matters is that my friend is speaking to me again. What matters is that she's taking a chance, not on a fantasy but on a possibility. She's stepping out of the tribunal and into the arena. I think the real answer is more complicated than a simple verdict. I was an asshole in my delivery, but my intention was rooted in love and frustration. I was right about the reality of the situation, but I was wrong about how to help her see it. The world of dating is brutal and can make the best of us insecure and judgmental. The real league isn't about looks or height or hairline. It's about kindness, empathy, and the courage to be vulnerable. It's about finding someone whose weird meshes with your weird. Maybe Chloe and Ben will find that. Maybe they won't. But she's trying. And I'll be here, ready with ice cream or champagne, ready to be her friend, not her critic. Because that's my job. And it's the only league that truly matters.
The story ends here, but our journey doesn't have to. If you want to join me for the next tale, please subscribe and ring that bell. Your support means everything. Thanks for watching.